So who are you?
My name is Daniel Jebarat. I work with Syncfusion. We are the company that does the Windows Forms FAQ. If you haven't heard of us, you've probably heard of the FAQ.
Okay, interesting. So when you're here today at the
I'm at the
component
Whitby
center,
Component Developer Lab. We are looking at the Beta 2 bits and making sure our Windows Forms and ASP.NET components are compatible with Beta 2. Just testing out the design time and just the runtime aspects, everything pretty much. So I've covered most of the Windows Forms controls today, and
Uh-huh.
looking at the ASP.NET stuff right now.
and you're
So
and you're gonna write about it in your FAQ. See, I don't really know what. I've never heard of you guys.
I show you the fact.
Sure.
Sure. Most Windows Forms folks would have actually used the FAQ at some point.
I'm sure.
That's the FAQ. It's called Jar Shepherd's Windows Forms FAQ.
Okay.
And Jar Shepherd is the main person who's maintaining the FAQ at Syncfusion, basically.
Fantastic.
We are a component vendor, so we have a bunch of 10 different product suites, components basically for ASP.NET Windows Forms. And I can show you some of the components
Sure.
so you guys can get an idea what we do. This is our main user interface. One of the flagship components that we have is a grid component. It's a cell-oriented grid component, kind of like Excel. So it can do data binding, but it can also address everything as a cell-by-cell basis. So I'll give you maybe a cool sample demo. This is a grid with an embedded Internet Explorer.
Cool.
So you can see our homepage in there, basically. Scroll down and up. And another sample that's really cool. There's a really quick refresh cycle with the grid. This is used as the basis of several applications in the financial industry, trading applications. A lot of real-time data coming in, and previously people were using C++ or Unix workstations, and with this, several applications have been actually moved to .NET with really high-speed refreshes taking place. So that's something else. Let me show you. That's our. That's not it. Okay, this is another one to demo. Grid control.
This is 1.1.
This is all 1.1. I have the same stuff on that machine with 2.0.
And how was going from 1.1 to 2.0? It just ran?
It wasn't actually. The runtime stuff was really easy. No changes really. We just recompiled with 2.0. Still have some warnings to deal with, but most of it just works. The design time, we had some minor issues basically, but really nothing very major.
Fantastic.
I can also show you another quick demo. We're working on one thing that we do is basically any new interface that Microsoft comes up with, we kind of provide an alternate way for folks to get it right away. So developers who want to have the same look and feel as the Microsoft applications can use our code to get that.
Wow.
So as part of that, we're working on, we did Visual Studio.NET docking 3 years back when it came out. This is Whitby style docking. So you can see that it's very similar to.
So you got the whole. Very nice. Now, how did you do that? Did you plug into an API?
No.
To you, or you custom? This is custom.
This is all custom. This is stuff that we write ourselves.
Now, did you write it in managed code, or is
it's all managed basically?
Fantastic.
Completely managed code basically. So that's our Whitby demo.
That's cool.
And pretty much that's our chart product. So I'll just show you a quick demo of chart. That's a chart. That's another interesting product is a diagram product, and that's right here. It's kind of like you can use it to create Visio-like diagrams, basically. So this is from XML file across a
Nice.
schema of that XML file. Another cool product that we have, something that we really. This is a HTML rendering engine that's built from scratch in C#. Doesn't actually use IE, so it's really.
Now, is it XHTML compliant?
It's XHTML compliant.
It is.
It uses the XML parser, so it is XHTML compliant. table support and a whole bunch of, I mean, it doesn't support the whole 9 yards.
So what was the experience like for writing an HTML parser?
We use the XML parser, so the first thing we do is basically take any HTML that you give us, basically convert it to XHTML, make sure it's well formed, all that stuff. And then the XML parser is the one that actually does the parsing. And then the rendering. The rendering, of course, was a challenge, getting it to work really properly, completely in managed code, and also getting reasonable performance.
How did you do the rendering in managed code?
GDI plus.
GDI plus.
Completely.
So you interop with GDI plus.
Yeah, it's completely GDI plus, and we do the whole layout calculation, everything ourselves. Basically, we have pretty good experience with just common layout management. Basically, we've done grid layout managers, grid bag layout managers, those kinds of things, kind of like the Java layout managers in .NET. So we had substantial experience with those. So that kind of gives us some kind of a background to do this kind of work. And we originally got started not so much for the HTML display itself, but we wanted to really have a powerful layout engine, basically, and that's really what we think of when we do when we started with the HTML engine. So we think of it as really a extremely flexible and powerful layout engine that people can use without really going into fancy arcane details about how to configure a grid bag layout or those kinds of things, and still get a lot of the power, especially if you need localization, those kinds of things.
Wow,
So
very
that's
interesting. So you could use that in your app if you just wanted to host some HTML content for UI.
Sure, yeah.
Rather than hosting a whole browser.
Right. You don't have to have a browser, and think of it as if you have a need to have a couple of use cases that I can think of straight off. If you need to have a UI, depending on who logs in, basically, a manager logs in, you need to present a different UI. Administrator logs in, you need to present a different UI. So if you're dealing with static layout with forms, basically, then you have a lot of work to do to conditionally enable, disable things, or make them visible, not visible. If you're doing the same layout with HTML right inside your rich client application, you just simply store two pieces of HTML text in the database or wherever you're pulling it off. And then depending on the profile of the user logging in, you simply pull in the correct one and you display it. And boom, you have everything configured the right way, and you don't have to worry about who gets access to what or anything like that. And the same thing applies for, consider the case where your application has to be localized, maybe 2 different languages, and maybe they have completely different string lengths for similar pieces of text. And you don't have to worry about all that. With HTML, everything is kind of handled for you and kind of acts as a super layout engine.
So what was the experience like writing it in C# and managed code?
I think if we had done this in unmanaged code, we would have probably taken several times more effort to get it working the way we wanted. So it was definitely fun and really productive to write it in managed code. And the tool support, the great tool support that we get with Studio.NET makes it all the more fun. It does come with its own set of challenges for resource management, of course. I mean, you kind of get it both ways. The runtime takes care of resource management, but at the same time, you also have to be extremely careful that you are not causing memory leaks, maybe subscribing to events that you don't release, those kinds of things, because those can, in a way, they come back to bite you.
Those would be managed memory leaks.
Right, managed memory leaks.
Objects in generation 2.
Right.
Of the garbage collector.
Right.
Never get cleaned up.
Never get cleaned up.
It's the only kind of memory leak that exists in managed code.
Right, and in some ways that's harder to actually track down than even maybe a unmanaged memory leak.
But you could use there's some new profilers coming out,
right,
which will actually, in runtime, show you exactly where all objects are in generation 0 to 2.
Oh, okay.
So it would actually help you in this particular case. And that's thanks to the profiling work guys are doing on the
2.0
Vivi team.
Cool. So yeah,
So
overall it was
productive.
overall it was a very productive experience,
Yeah.
and we really enjoyed it. Without the great tool support and also the great runtime itself, would have been certainly that much harder, basically. So,
Sure. All right. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
And this is some interesting stuff. I'm going to start reading your FAQ.
Great.
Because I'm going to start doing some more work.
We're going to do one for web forms pretty soon.
Are you? Good. Because Channel 9 is all ASP.NET.
Okay.
So I'm actually learning some pretty cool stuff here from some ASP.NET vendors.
Okay.
Some cool controls. Maybe
Right.
we'll utilize them on Channel 9.
Right. We just we've been doing Windows Forms much longer than ASP.NET. So we have about 6 of our controls are currently enabled for ASP.NET, and the grid is really the big one, and that's going to be in beta next month.
Now with the grid, you do the refreshes of the data asynchronously?
With ASP.NET or
with WinForms?
with WinForms, it's actually it's left to you basically. You
Okay.
can have any kind of strategy you want to update the grid. We have what's called virtual mode, where the data is completely dissociated from the grid, and the grid simply displays it basically.
Fantastic.
So in that case, you can really decide how the data comes in, whether you want to queue it up and update it every X seconds or X milliseconds or whatever. Pretty much any update strategy that you want, you can configure it to be that way basically.
Fantastic.
So it's completely detached from the actual data.
And where can we get a hold of these controls? Can we just look at them, download them for review?
Yeah, you can go to syncfusion.com and get a 30-day eval.
Okay.
Just basically giving your name and email address. That's really all it takes to get a quick look at the controls. And they're fully functional and don't have any crippled features or anything like that.
Fantastic. Well, it's really great to see so many people building such cool stuff.
Cool. And
Great.
what talk to us.
Cool. Well,
Thank
take
you.
care.
Thank you.